Hello everybody and welcome back to the Prince of Persia 2008 walkthrough. So, I have teleported back to the Royal Gardens here because, you know, I could not be bothered to go from where I was and run all the way back to get to here, which is where we need to go in order to reach our next fertile ground, which is another of those blasted towers. The concubine just loves her towers, so yeah, we kind of have to suffer it. And I would argue that this one is probably the worst of the two to have to deal with, because it's got a rather mean little light seed on the descent from the top of the tower, but also there is the very real possibility that you may have to slide down the thing 4 times if you miss a certain batch of other light seeds, which is just really mean.
Spire of Dreams.
Yeah?
Ah, so that's what this one's called.
It was beautiful. I used to play here as a child. Sometimes I'd spend the night at the top.
Were you as serious then as you are now?
Dreams were all I had time for. The fertile ground is at the top. We can use that plate to get to the next level, where a mechanism will allow us to go further.
I have the feeling that this mechanism isn't going to help us out too much.
The Spire of Dreams. It was built for a queen 200-300 years ago. The last part of the palace, of the city, to be completed. It was a tribute to the queen from her king. A spire to dreams. A place to look into the future.
Can you really tell the future in this?
Quite romantic as a thing to do.
It's symbolic. The spire is
Building
to
a
show you what
symbolic
you can achieve
tower.
if you dream. My mother used to tell me whatever I dreamed of here would come true.
What did you dream of?
The usual childish things.
Oh, come on, I want to know. What did you dream of?
Far off places. There were merchants that came here. Fewer and fewer.
I don't know why, but Far Off Places is immediately making me think of
Spices, plants.
Belle,
They'd look so different
the
from the
first
people.
song in Beauty and the Beast, because it's
If I closed my eyes
Far Off
and
Places,
breathed,
magic
I would
spells,
see where they came from.
a prince in disguise.
Signs in those streets.
Oh,
Now you can
Far Off
put it
Places,
this way.
daring sword
If you want.
fights, magic spells, a
I'll
prince in
take it.
disguise. There we go. That's the list.
This was a city
It's
before
quite
Armin
a
tried to
fun
take over
thing.
the first time around.
It was a city when the gods were young. Even Armin
But,
preserved it while he was
yeah,
here.
I really like the idea of a Spire of Dreams. I mean, obviously, building towers to show what you can do when you dream can end quite badly. See the Tower of Babel, because obviously that was humanity trying to reach the heavens to prove their worth, and yeah, that ended badly.
There. That mechanism will take us to the next floor of the tower.
And the concubine is going to decide to annoy us right now, isn't she?
We should put these in across the rest of the kingdom.
And I am correct. Yay.
What have we here? Are they real, or are they a dream?
Go! Find her! I'll follow when I can.
Now, this bit is really weird. So essentially what you've got to do is you've got to do what you did when you first encountered the concubine and slash at her and get rid of her illusions. However,
This is getting
she's
personal.
meant to kind of
Here?
appear in a kind of circle. I mean, you can just see her there, but I kind of missed her. But then it's like she kind of bugs out a little bit and doesn't appear where you think she's meant to appear. It's really bizarre. I mean, generally what you have to do is just run around in a circle until you've kind of beaten her to a pulp. Because she's going to stay in this kind of circle area and not go any higher until you have Elika. But you need to do that in order to get Elika, because you can't progress any further.
What are your dreams, little man? What fantasies can I make true? What desires will you paint upon my canvas?
Well, that's a little bit close for comfort there, Mrs. Concubine. Would rather not have that imagery in my head, thank you. Slightly irritating thing in terms of that ludonarrative dissonance coming back, because the game, as I've said, does a really good job about it, but there are the moments where Elika is trapped like that, and yet she can still magically save you.
Power, strength. Close your eyes, my prince, my king, and we shall taste your dreams together.
Once again, just stop, concubine. It's not going to end well for you.
The dreams you dream, your mind traveling distant lands, your body trapped in this decaying place. We are not so distant, we share many desires.
Yeah, concubine and Elika are not very similar in the slightest.
Nothing left but the dream of what was.
Well, still, having dreams is good, because it helps you grow further. It gives you something to go for, to aim for, to aspire to.
Mars will return, the city will shine again. He sleeps in the day and awake with the night.
And yeah, you can see what I mean by the concubine loves to talk. She really loves the sound of her own voice. And it kind of hasn't really been mentioned yet, but I'm sure it will eventually. But the concubine sold her soul to Ahriman in a moment of weakness. She kind of moved from place to place, and I think just happened to accidentally fall into the wrong crowd, and that ended badly. Also, that jump onto that pole shouldn't have worked, really, but I think the programming is done so that you can actually make it, which is quite nice. And now we can get up to the top and beat the ass of that concubine who has been taunting us throughout the entirety of this level.
Tell you that I can't move? We're both in trouble. Here we are. The concubine's around here somewhere.
Of course she is.
We just lost our way out of here.
And yeah.
Now that wouldn't be polite. Not for a guest.
Where is she?
Just waiting for my prince.
So, yeah, now we have to fight the concubine again! And she's going to make expert use of her countering and QuickTime event spam. So, be prepared for a slightly lengthy fight. Although saying that, thankfully, after we are done, we are going to be able to get all the light seeds in a reasonably quick fashion. And we've just got to make it through this fight. Now, despite what I say about the concubine not being a desirable character in terms of appearance, I do really like the design that they went with all of the fabric was just kind of wrapped around and just kind of falling off almost. It's kind of like it's rotting. And it kind of matches into the decaying look of the concubine, which makes her really kind of uncomfortable in appearance, which kind of works with the whole she's repulsive. But also it does kind of have a slight mirroring with Elika, in the sense of, obviously, Elika's shirt is slightly ripped and has bits swaying in the breeze. And so it's just one of those other slight mirroring things.
Corruption will take you.
But also, flowing fabric is always fun, because it makes fights just a lot more epic. It's the same reason that Bayonetta has the sleeve hair things in the original. It's just because it makes things look a lot more dynamic. And dynamic fights are always the best. It's why I am a massive fan of the Tifa versus Loz fight in Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Because you've got kind of the slight train on Tifa's outfit and her hair, and it just makes things just really cool to watch. It's the reason why capes tend to look so awesome in a lot of places. Like Batman's cape in the Arkham games. And she's nearly out of there. Nearly. She really does take a while, does this concubine. In the state we are right now, she is easily the most difficult of the standard fights that we have to do. So obviously the warrior is unstandard in the fights that we have to face him in. And we're done here.
Nothing. The dream is dead.
I'm beginning to feel sorry for Ahriman. I mean, he's been trapped with her for 1,000 years?
Yeah, I think most people probably would have gone crazy listening to her babble on for 1,000 years. I mean, my word. That's, like, ridiculous. But thankfully that is the last of the concubines' towers that we have to deal with. The next one's a lot more fun in the grand scheme of things.
She's right. The dream of this place is past.
You mean you're giving up?
No. Ahriman must still be stopped, but not for the past.
You better not give up. There's no way you're gonna look so good if you end up covered in corruption and spouting stuff about Ahriman.
I look good, huh?
Oh, don't tell me you don't know. I've never met a beautiful woman who didn't know she was beautiful.
And I've never met a man who used flattery unless he wanted something.
You have such a suspicious mind.
No, I'm just nowhere near as naive as you think I am.
And there it is. That wonderful sense of a growing relationship that I love so much.
How do we get out of here?
We'll have to go down the outside.
It's
of the tower.
great.
I think we can get out over there.
Now, obviously I mentioned Nolan North and Kari Waldgren voicing the Prince and Elika right at the start, and that was really stupid of me. Well, you do essentially have to do that to get the light seed that's there, but I'm not going to get it for a little while at least. But something that I found out recently was basically on looking at the Xbox achievements website to confirm things about the actual achievements in the game whilst doing commentary. I found that there was an interview with Nolan North that happened in 2012, and there was something very interesting in relation to Prince of Persia 2008 that turned up in that interview. So basically, I believe he was asked if he had any regrets in terms of his work, and he said, well, you know, I don't have any regrets, and I wouldn't say I choose the characters because the developers ultimately choose me. But if I could go back and redo one, though, let's put it that way, I would go back and redo my Prince of Persia. And his reasoning for that is that I just didn't really feel like the American accent worked with the artistry that the game showed. Thought that it was a beautiful game and it was a fun game to play, but the flowing robes and the style of what he looked like, Nolan North really wanted to do a little bit of a Middle Eastern accent, or actually a slightly British accent like Jake Gyllenhaal did in the 2012 Prince of Persia movie, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. But also similar to what Yuri Lowenthal did, which is a very British accent in the other Prince of Persia games. Essentially, he said it just needed a little bit of flavour to it, because the Middle American accent didn't match the beautiful artwork that the game had. So for him personally, there was a slight disconnect. So if he could go back and redo one, he'd want to give him a little more style. But even though he's a proud American, there's not much flair to the American accent, and there's not much of a romantic style to it necessarily. So he would want to redo this role. However, saying that, I actually quite like the American accent. I mean, I totally get where Nolan North is coming from with that. Because, I mean, up until this game, whenever the prince had spoken, it was always with a slightly British accent. Which was how people saw the prince, but this is a very different prince. He's much more fits that American wisecracking hero type, which is why I think that Nolan North is probably the perfect voice actor for this prince, because it's ultimately what Nolan North is most well known for. He's most well known for playing this type of hero, and it works. I totally get that kind of maybe a little more uniqueness would have been good, but I think it works. And I certainly don't feel any disconnect in the voices, and I know for a fact that there are a large number of people who don't find that either. Or at least, I say a large number of people, there was at least one person in the comment section for that article that said so. But I would imagine that in the grand scheme of things, that kind of reaction is the same. Because it just fits his character, really. Also, 3 out of 4 of the concubines' areas are defeated, which makes me quite happy, because it means that we get on to the really interesting warrior soon enough. who has the most complicated of motives for joining Ahriman, as more than any of the other corrupted in the entire game. So he's a really interesting villain. But obviously we do have to finish off our time with the concubine first. And also 666 light seeds. Wonderful. And thankfully we got off that rather quickly, because otherwise I think Ahriman would have been rather too happy with how perfect that number was sitting for him. Now, I don't quite know how to explain it, but there is the odd moment in this game where there appear to be jumps that you shouldn't be able to make, but you can. Because elsewhere in the game you end up dropping similar distances and dying. It's weird. Like that jump there from that corridor platform to the inside of the tower. It looks like you shouldn't be able to make that, but yeah. Now I will say, thankfully, unlike the other tower, there aren't any slightly nastily hidden light seeds about. They're all pretty much in sight and relatively obvious how you're meant to get to them. And when we make our final descent down the Spire of Dreams, we are going to get that light seed which has just been taunting us on the other two occasions that we decided to slide down. It's a bit of an odd one, really, because on pretty much every other light seed you kind of have a slight path etched out for you with the markings on the walls. But that single light seed doesn't have that at all. And so you kind of have to go against what your brain has been learning how to do for the entirety of the game, which is follow the paths that it sets out for you to get that light seed. Because you may think, oh, there's going to be some other way of getting to it, but no, you've just got to slide down on the opposite side. But we are nearly at the top now, thankfully. And then we can get that light seed that I have been just talking about. And you see what I mean? You shouldn't be able to make that jump because it's too much of being at an angle, but the programming lets you do it anyway. It's slightly cheating, a little bit. But it's evidently in the programming, so I can't really complain. And that was a bit stupid. You are able to jump onto that wall.
Thank you for your help.
I just evidently angled myself rather badly, and so ended up flying off like a crazy person. it's things like that which kind of prove that you can be insanely careful in this game, and yet you can still easily manage to die without meaning to. And so, let us get that light seed. You sneaky little blighter. You've got to be very, very quick and on the ball to get it. So do be careful, but otherwise you should be perfectly fine in managing to get it. And now let's grab our final light seeds for the area and make our way to the final area of the concubine. Well, the final fertile ground, because we have the final boss fight with the concubine after that. But it is time to head to the last fertile ground of the royal palace.
Don't you have any cause you
Let's do this.
Causes are all about other people's dreams. I want to live my own.